Welcome everyone to our Kninja Knowledge webinar with our very special guest this evening, Trent McClaren from Practice Ignition, and he has the honor of being our first guest from outside of North America. So we're very excited about that, and hopefully we didn't get him to get up too early, but I'm not even sure what time it is there, but I'm sure he'll tell us in a minute.
Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a beautiful 9 a.m. here in Sydney on Wednesday the 25th.
So you're in the future.
I am.
That's really cool. That's really cool that we're talking.
I'm about 8 hours from the future.
Yeah. As Steve said, Trent is from Practice Ignition, which is a practice management software, correct? Is that the right terminology for it?
I would say pre-practice management,
okay.
being that it does everything up until your workflow then kicks in. So it's kind of what happens after a proposal gets accepted, and then how do you trigger the workflow, which is generally practice management.
Okay.
So you think of Practice Ignition as the client-facing tool, and then you look at your workflow tools, which is your back end side of it.
Okay, perfect. So Trent has won a lot of awards this year. I'm not even sure that we can name them all. He's had a very successful year so far in 2017, but I think that the one that stands out the most for me is Accounting Thought Leader. I think that, that is probably the one, from my perspective anyways, that shows how far ahead of the curve you are. And so we're so excited to have you join us today.
Thank you so much.
So maybe what we can start with, if you want to share with us a little your journey about how you arrived where you are now.
Yeah, so funnily enough, like a lot of people kind of say, like, Trent, you must be this awesome accountant, you're a bookkeeper, you're all these things. And I'm like, actually, I'm none of those things. I've never been an accountant or a bookkeeper. It's like, oh my goodness, how the hell did you get into this industry? Like, how did you get to where you are today, sort of thing? And a long story kind of short, like I've always worked through account management based roles in different tech companies. I worked with a company in Australia called eWay. They did online payments. They integrated into Xero, and they said, hey, Trent, we want you to head this up. And by that, all it meant was you're the guy that's going to call everyone. I was like, okay, great, I'll do that. And from what started in that role 5 or 6 years ago has now literally taken me so far into the accounting industry. It's not funny, because that's where I met everyone. From Xero, from Intuit. My boss went to Intuit Australia, and then she brought me with her to Intuit when she got promoted. And then that just kind of embedded my thing in. But the biggest thing I kind of found was, it's who you know, who you meet, and who you work with. And that's kind of what my passion's always been, is helping others succeed and achieve what they want to succeed. And be successful in, and through that, learning what other people have done really well. So realistically, account managers, business development managers for tech companies, they chat to more accountants and bookkeepers than most accountants and bookkeepers, if you think about it. So we all share everyone's best practice tools, and we chat to people like yourself and think, hey, what are you guys doing? How did you become Firm of the Future finalists? What did you do? And then through that, I actually then are able to go and help other people go and do what they want to do because of the good work that you've done. So it's kind of where, I can't remember the saying, I think it's giants building on giants or something like that. It's stepping on giants' shoulders, like we're just helping one another. We all lift each other up with our own successes. And my story is very much along those lines. I just help everyone else learn how everyone else was successful.
That's great. And I think that's part of the reason that we wanted, to have you on one of our Kninja Knowledge webinars, is you have the same feeling as we do, that the more people that we can lift up and educate and help with different things of what are happening in the industry, that we're all better for it. So we appreciate that as well. So can you tell us, you've told us a little bit about yourself. Can you tell us about your product. So tell us a little bit about Practice Ignition. You mentioned that it is a pre-practice management software, but can you give us a little bit more detail about that?
Yeah, of course. I think when I normally sort of summarize it, we encompass all of your proposals, your digital signatures, payment processing, and then we kind of bundle all that up into forecasting. So based on all of the agreements that you've got, we can start to tell you how much money you should be making this year, what your average client revenue is, what your most popular services are. So if you think about what e-commerce did for retailers, and then it gave clients a digital way to engage with their products and services, and then it would trigger all of the workflow on the back end to deliver that product. We do the same thing for accountants, bookkeepers. We give them a digital way to engage with clients so that they can purchase their services. We then organise all of the billing on a regular basis. It might be quarterly, monthly, whatever it may be. And depending on the practice management, we can then trigger those workflows on the back end. It's all in the cloud. Everything stays compliant. Effectively, Practice Ignition was created to help advisors better communicate and better collaborate with their clients. That's why we exist. We want to help you do a better job at speaking to and winning more business and doing it more appropriately and having the right metrics to be able to say, why are we winning? Why are we not winning? What can we dive into to figure out how we can be better? But yeah.
And is your product designed for, our audience is primarily bookkeepers. Is it designed for bookkeepers and accounting firms? Does it matter? It serves both.
It definitely does. From one man, one woman, one man band, sole traders, all the way up to big four. We work in every environment of that. A lot of it is generally based on your business model. So we find we work really well with bookkeepers and accountants that are pushing that cloud agenda, because that means that your frequency of billing your clients has increased. And that's the biggest sort of pro of why you like using Practice Ignition, because you're able to automatically bill these clients flexible billing arrangements really seamlessly and straightforward through our platform. And that's where our biggest value prop comes in. And then you think about automatic engagement letters and all those sorts of things. And that just happens as a result of building the proposal out.
Okay, so you may have answered this question already, but for the ones in our audience who aren't familiar with your product, can you tell us one thing that they could use it for that they would see an immediate benefit from if they were to launch it tomorrow or next week?
Yeah, definitely. So I think for North American, the crowd there, we get a lot of good feedback around the automatic engagement letter builder, because no one likes doing it in a Word template. So basically, as you put your services into your proposal, we automatically build the services into your engagement letter automatically. So you've got your template that's there, and that will just automatically happen, and it's stored online. So your compliance is sorted. You don't have to worry about trying to spend a lot of time building a proposal. You can do it in minutes through our platform. So that's where you'll see the immediate benefit. It's just how easy it is to engage and win new business.
Okay, perfect. We are getting some lag as well. Is that us that's only seeing it, or if anyone can let us know in the chat if there is a lag that everyone else is seeing as well?
Yeah, I mean,
that would be great.
Yeah, no one is saying anything, so I'm presuming everything is fine.
That it's just us?
Yeah, it's, well, and we do usually lag a little, even though we like to think we're cutting edge, but
Okay.
sometimes we lag a little.
Okay.
So that's okay.
Perfect.
It's all good. Diane says it's all good.
Okay, so it's us. It's us.
There
lagging.
you go. There
Okay.
you go. Yes.
Okay.
I did want to ask one thing about Practice Ignition. Was it developed and started in Australia?
It was, yes. It was developed by an accounting firm here in Australia called Interactive Accounting. They were one of the first cloud-only accounting firms in Australia back in 2008. They were actually one of the first Zero Platinum partners in Australia. So that's over 1,000 clients on the cloud, and that's all they did. They scaled that to about $3.2 million. So our founder, Guy Pearson, I think a lot of you have sort of seen him speak into it Thrive last year. He built and scaled this product because they saw a need in the market for how do they streamline their onboarding and engagement process, and then what happens after that. So it's been a great turn the last sort of 2 years is where it's picked up a lot of steam, but we did start out an accounting firm and practice.
Okay.
And usually most of the app developers or the third-party products that are on the cloud that were started because of a pain point in their own firm tends to be the stronger ones, because you understand where we're coming from and what our pain points are. So, so that's great. Okay. Can you tell us what your company vision is for your product going forward and how it can help bookkeepers and accountants?
Definitely. So I think I kind of touched before that it was built to help firms collaborate and communicate more effectively. So in that instance, we want to make sure, because scope creep is actually, such a big pain point for the industry, because we don't effectively keep track of or what we're committing to in terms of services with clients. So a big part of it is that not only do we want you to communicate and collaborate with your clients more effectively, we want you to ensure that you're actually making good revenue and increasing your profitability as a result, and acting more efficiently, hence being able to trigger the workflows on the back of proposals being accepted and things like that. There's even some functionality where you can communicate through the proposal, and that appears back into Practice Ignition. So you can have full conversations with clients and keep that audit trail to the proposal inside Practice Ignition. So Practice Ignition almost becomes like your sales focused CRM for advisors, because you're tracking proposals by stage, by activity, when it was last opened, all those kinds of things. And then when you want to go and re-engage that client in 12 months time, you've got a really clear idea of what you actually agreed to. And then you understand potentially what your revenue opportunities are moving forward. So yeah, there's a lot of in there to give more insights into how we can, better improve our fee structures and all those kinds of things as well.
Okay, perfect. As you know, and I know that you've done a few webinars and series of webinars on the changes that are happening in our industry. If you could look into your crystal ball, because we know that in Australia you have a crystal ball, can you tell us where you think our industry is going 1 or 2 years down the road? I mean, 5 years is really hard to predict because everything's moving so quickly. But what are your thoughts on what's happening in the next couple of years?
So I did a talk on this in Melbourne yesterday in front of 400 people on the industry trends and things that we're seeing in Australia and what were the impacts and challenges so much that we're going to see in 2018. And even though it's a challenge, it's also an opportunity of where we need to focus. And it's a challenge because we don't necessarily know how to fix it today. But the three key areas, to save you having to fly to Australia and come and see me talk about it, I'll just give you the punchline now.
Not that we don't want to come to Australia.
No, believe me, you'd have a great time. We'd have a great time. The three key areas that are getting impacted was technology, process, and clients. Now, technology's been the biggest impact in Australia for the last 4 years because that's, as a no-brainer, that's what keeps changing all the time. But through that, we're trying to impact and change our process. And we change our process and we try to work with more clients and different kinds of clients because of technology. So technology is the instigator, and that's the one thing that's going to keep changing. So my biggest feedback is always to keep one eye on the future and one eye on today. Like, what are you doing today, but what do you need to be aware of that's coming? So you kind of need to live in, you're kind of hedging. You're here, you're there, you're here, you're there. And just the best way to do that is just keep a track of, leading firms. What are they using? What are they doing? Because they're generally the ones that are always progressively looking at more tools every single day and week. I know me, even in our business, we're always looking at new tools that can help us be more efficient and effective with our clients and our partners. So you got to just do the same thing. You've got to stay nimble and agile. And again, that can be really hard if you're a really big organization, but I find the smaller you are, the more nimble and agile you can be. And then that clients piece that I kind of mentioned there is around, niching or nishing. I don't know how the North Americans want to say it. I say niche. David Leary says niche.
We say it the same as you do in Australia. I think it's only the U.S. that says
yes,
it.
the U.S. just doesn't know how to speak properly, so it's okay.
It's just David Leary.
No offense to our U.S. guests.
No, none. Yeah, you can say niche. It's not okay. Yeah. Anyway, so being able to specialise on types of clients, because that allows you to go a step further and be the thought leader on your construction industry bookkeeping clients or trades or hospitality or whatever it may be. So that when a client walks in the door and they say, hey, why would I use you? It's like, because everyone's unique selling proposition is all the same, right? Like we all care, we all do compliance, we all do bookkeeping. You can reach us anytime you want, as long as it's between 9 and 5 Monday to Friday.
Right.
We all do it. We're not special or standing out anymore. So the only way we can be special and stand out is by specializing and diving deeper into types of clients we want to work with. That means that we can then add more value because we've got benchmarking, we've got all these other kinds of cool things to go. This is how you can perform better as a business. And we focus more on helping them improve their profitability. And we do that, as I said, by being an expert in that field. So that's why the getting your niche is really important.
Okay.
And I would like to thank you too, Trent, because I know you didn't do it on purpose, but saying how important it is that we spend so much time looking at apps and researching, because sometimes I'm told I perhaps spend too much time looking at apps. So thank you for verifying what I do is important.
So you're a great example. One of you looks at the future and the other one keeps an eye on today. This is
There you go. There you go.
You're a living example of my analogy. I love it. That's great.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we have some questions that are coming in through the chat. If you want to scroll up a little bit.
Yep.
So Dominique had some fairly specific questions. I don't know whether or not we really are going to address them here. Perhaps we can touch on one of them, which is, how does Practice Ignition work with a workflow or practice management program?
So at the moment, we've only got a limited integration with the workflow tools, but we're about to release a Zapier integration before the end of the year. And that will actually allow us to plug into pretty much any workflow tool that's connected to Zapier, and that will be fantastic. Today we've got a Workflow Max integration. There is a Carbon integration on the agenda. It is happening in 2018. I would expect it to be early next year, maybe around March or April, but it's very loosely based. Things change all the time, but there is a Carbon integration that will happen at some point. But Zapier is definitely happening, and that's happening this year. We're already building it. We've been testing it. I'm very excited. But practically, what does that do? As I said, you send a proposal to a client, they accept it. That will automatically create your workflow templates in your workflow system, which you could then automatically allocate to a staff member. So without you having to go, cool, proposal's been accepted, and then go into the workflow and create the templates, it'll automatically be there. And we can tie that based on the services. So if you've got 5 different services, each service will trigger different tasks and workflows automatically.
Excellent. So you do have some Practice Ignition fans in our attendees as well. Jenny, I know, is a big Practice Ignition fan. Leanna apparently also uses Practice Ignition and said she's been with it for over a year and loves it. So so that's great. And do you want to move on to the next?
Sure, we can do that. We've talked a lot about the future, and how do you see the role of a bookkeeper changing in the future, and what advice would you give them to help them stay relevant in the future? Yeah,
cool. Good question. The first thing I'll start with, because it is definitely changing, and I think it's just being open to the fact that you need to be really good at change mindsets and being able to adapt and thrive, because you just don't know what's going to get thrown at you with the way all this technology stuff's going. There's a lot of whispers and things here of what could happen. I'm not a believer in the doom and gloom side of it. That's not a thing. And the biggest thing I noticed in Australia, because the government's involved and they like to move the goalposts every 6 to 12 months, okay, report on this, report on that, and then do this, and then do that, and give us more. Your bookkeepers are always going to have a job, because the governments can't decide what they want when they want to do it. And software companies can't keep up either. They can't keep up with all of these demands and just be like, oh, cool, we've built it. It's like the government says, well, we're going to do it this, and you've got to do it this way because we're really inflexible and we don't run great systems. So if you can build it to fit our model, that'd be fantastic. It's like, okay, well, we've got all these other roadmap agendas here as well. So it's going to take us at least 6 to 12 months before we get to that stage. So you got to think that's always going to happen. But to answer the question, bookkeepers, you generally have the better relationship than an accountant generally will. And again, in Australia, that's generally the case. If you think about In Australia, my analogy is generally doctors and nurses. That's generally how accountants and bookkeepers are viewed here in Australia. I don't know if it's similar in North America.
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah, I would say so.
Cool. And, you know, again, in that analogy, you can't have one without the other. It just doesn't work. But I find nurses, wrong, I'm talking wrong practice now. Bookkeepers move up into more of that, have the opportunity to move into more of that advisory role, more into that cloud specialist role, into that role helping their clients transform their business and become that. I don't like using the trusted advisor word because I see it and hear it too much these days, but until I find a better word, I'm going to use that one. Getting to that trusted advisor space, getting to that place where people, they like you, they trust you, and they trust that you can help them grow their business. And that's the USP. That's that unique selling point. If you are the business that helps your clients grow, they will love you and tell everyone about you because you are different. You're not just doing the tasks. You're actually in there helping them do a business model, a business plan. So, it's transient, and this is quite different. Bookkeepers have never had to do this before. Accountants have never had to do this before. You're really looking at how do we add more value to our clients? What reality, capacity, how does that work? And the best way to do that, as I said, is just look at what all the other successful bookkeepers are doing and see what you can model into your business model and then go from there. But it is definitely changing. So you're more of a quality control agent. You're not necessarily doing data entry. My advice is, get on HubDoc, get on Receipt Bank, and just push all of that data into your cloud accounting ledgers and let the technology do the heavy lifting.
Perfect. Can you tell us, so what Steve and I have seen and at various events that we've been to and different webinars and things that we've attended, it appears as though the bookkeeping profession is adopting all of this cloud technology much more rapidly and accepting of it than the accounting profession. Now, obviously, we're in our little bubble here. You travel around the world and talk to accountants and bookkeepers. Are you seeing that as well in your travels?
Yes, I am. And it's largely because bookkeepers are the decision maker and they are more nimble in the decisions that they can make. If I go to an accounting firm of sort of 10, 15 people, even 6 people, you've still got to get through the red tape of, do we need it? What's it do? Multiple people trying to make decisions on it. But the smaller the team, the more likely they are to pick up things and run with it really quickly. It's very rare to find big companies that can move that fast. So when you hear stories about Amazon and how freaking awesome they are at everything they do, you got to think that takes a lot of work and a lot of money, right? Like and that's why they leave everyone else for dust, is because they are moving as nimble as possible. Versus, you look at other companies that maybe don't exist anymore. It's because they weren't nimble and they weren't looking to keep innovating solutions. It was kind of, this is what we've always done and this is what's made us all our money. If we don't do this, then we won't make any more money. But it's like, cool, that's great. But if you're not going to be around in 10 years' time, then who cares? What's the point?
Okay.
Yeah, great point.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk apps. With there being so many apps that are coming out into the marketplace, and every country has got just tons and tons of apps that are coming out. Obviously, the US has the largest amount that integrate with the software products. What would you use as kind of a good benchmark for bookkeepers to decide which apps they should choose for their practice or for their clients?
Other than Practice Ignition, of course, Trent.
Yes.
Everyone should use Practice Ignition.
Do you consider Practice Ignition an app?
Yeah, we call it an app. Like, it is an app because, even as developers, we say, you're talking about in-app, like in product, in platform. Okay. An application is just a product. So I think a lot of people think an app is like a smartphone device, like it's an iPhone app. It's like, well, you've still got browser-based apps. Like So I think the word app is just a bit, we've aligned it with its phones more so than anything else. Apps to use. Again, how do you know what restaurant you want to go to? Well, you Google it, you look at Yelp, you get on, Yelp's probably the most relevant one, I think, for North America. You reviews, peer reviews, who's using what, how are they using it, what are success stories, what are the case studies, look at the product. A good example I had, if you go to a website and you can't see a product demo, a video, or anything about the product, it's probably crap. That was what I was told. If you can't see anything about it, there's all this like smoke and mirrors and hype, but you can't actually see the product, it probably looks really bad. But yeah, ask other people, ask for case studies. Tell me how many other bookkeepers and accountants use your platform and how successful are they? And that's hard because there's a lot of new ones that come out all the time and they could also be really good. And that's obviously on your decision whether you want to be the guinea pig or you want to wait till other people try it out and have success with it. And the ones that you see that are up and coming, you'll know who they are because everyone's talking about them. You know, think about all the Facebook groups that are out there in the world today. And everyone's talking about a million different apps all the time, but there's always a string of consistent ones that always come through. Hence why I always sort of talk about Receipt Bank and HubDoc because everyone else is always talking about Receipt Bank and HubDoc. You know what I mean?
Well, they are. They're great programs. Both of them are. And
they're both awesome. So it's, you know, it makes...
Yeah, they can be game changers for both your practice itself as well as your clients. So yes. So Leanna has a question, and she says she knows it's been asked a lot of times. Are you planning on making it an iPhone app?
I think eventually we are planning to make it an iPhone app. But so to give everyone that kind of backstory, and I don't normally tell people what we do behind the scenes. It's, you know, Willy Wonka's kind of factory of hidden goodies that
we won't tell anyone, Trent. We won't tell anyone.
You're not recording this, are you?
No.
Actually, we are, but
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I'm just kidding. So we raised $5 million in May. That was actually part of the big reason I was able to come across in the first place, which was fantastic. We were just shy of buying me a jet, which was good. Wouldn't mind a jet, that'd be nice. But a lot of that money is going into product development and marketing. So we need to keep growing and scaling the company. We need to get in front of more people and get them to see the practices you should dream. But inside that, we need to keep building out functionality that's going to help. An iPhone app or a native app specifically for the phone is something we will do eventually, but it's not necessarily at the top of the priority list because there's a lot of other really cool things we want to drive first that will deliver greater efficiencies and allow firms to, you know, potentially make more money out of it. So things like group signatures when you've got multiple people that need to sign off on a proposal and engagements. We've got the Zapier integrations, the Carbon integrations, and all those things that generally make a bigger impact to our overall base of customers. So we always need to consider what is it we want to do and what can we deliver on sooner rather than later. What we will do more likely is develop the ability to log in to Practice Ignition through your smartphone, through the web browser, and allow that to be enabled for smartphone devices and then give you some of that functionality that is more relevant. That would be more likely to happen sooner rather than later, like early next year type thing. Like the guys are already talking about those kinds of things and how we can help with that sort of stuff. The other big thing we've been working on right now has been around recurring flexible payments and contracts so that you can just sort of drag and drop when you want different payments to occur. So if a client's engaged and they say, hey, can you move it to next week? It's like, yeah, I can. Just drag, drop. But right now you've kind of got to manipulate the proposal that's existing and change the start date, end date. So we're making that a lot more flexible and easier to maintain and manage.
Okay, and that absolutely sounds much more useful and beneficial to the accounting and bookkeepers. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're dealing with clients as well, and it's trying to make sure that experience is really like we're big on customer experience. What's the customer impact, and what do they think about it?
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with people's money as well, like it's important to bed that stuff down really quickly. But that's kind of the big things we're focused on since getting a new investment of funding. Because since we've got that funding, we've picked up another 9 staff. So we picked up myself as head of accounting/sales and partnerships, head of operations, head of digital acquisition, 2 customer success managers into the UK, 2 more into Canada, which look after Canada and the US. And then we've also picked up 2 new product managers as well. So we've got more product managers looking and chatting to customers every single day and week to go, cool, what do we need to do? How do we need to do it? And then working with the development team to build it out based on those customer interviews. So, you know, one day you might get an email from me or the team saying, hey, can we chat? We'd love to just learn about what you're doing or what we could do better.
Okay. Can you tell me, do you have geographic specific versions of Practice Ignition, or is the general platform the same and just the payment piece varies from country to country?
Yeah, the latter. So the platform is the same in every market. It's the payments piece that's different in every market, and just because every country's got different payment capabilities. So, for example, in Australia and the US, we do credit card and direct debit or ACH payments. I think Canada and the UK, we only do credit card payments. New Zealand, we only do credit card payments. And that's because we've built Stripe into the platform, which we can use in every market, which is awesome.
Okay.
But the direct debiting side that it can cost sort of $40,000 to $50,000 for us to actually build that functionality into each market. So it's depending on where we get traction and where we're working, or, you know, if we found that 100 customers said, no, we can't use you unless you've got direct debit or ACH, that's the stuff that helps us decide, you know, where to spend $50,000. So if you want to help me spend $50,000, I need that feedback.
Okay. Well, Jenny's just given you the feedback that she needs it. So there's your first one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. There you go. There you go. Okay.
Right. Well, they're the things that are definitely always on the roadmap. It's just a matter of when. So yeah, we're doing some cool stuff in the UK with a company called Go Cardless. Hopefully at the moment, they're a massive like direct payments, direct debit type company over there. So we potentially have that option as well. Rather than trying to build our own thing, we can partner with other companies and build that integration to further streamline those integrations and experiences.
Okay, perfect. So we've spent a fair bit of time talking about you know, what's happening in the industry, the product and service that you provide, kind of the future of bookkeeping. What we also like to make sure that we do in these webinars is people do business with people, ultimately, not with products. So we do want to make sure that, you know, we kind of, I guess, allow everyone a little bit more into who Trent is. If Trent would like to share who Trent is. So
what do you want to know? An open book.
Okay, perfect. You may regret saying that. So can you tell us a little bit about what you like to do when you're not working?
So I specifically live next to the beach so that I can, like right now, I'm looking at the ocean. Somewhere over there.
Oh, okay.
Kind of see that in the distance, yeah. So it just means that I can live by the beach and still work and do whatever I've got to do. I really like food. Like, I'm a foodie, big foodie. You know, me and my wife will eat out at restaurants. We like to cook as well. We do that too. But yeah, I like a good whiskey. I'm not going to lie. I've been in Melbourne for the last 2 days, and I've just done the Melbourne thing, and we went from bar to restaurant to bar to restaurant to the cigar bars, and it's just it's all too much. And yeah, I've done a lot of traveling in the last couple of weeks, again, for work, but again, it's always trying to make sure there's a lot of fun in that. So we were in Latvia for a week. We were only there for a conference. So in the other days, you know, we had a tour of Riga, a walking tour, checking out the history and the architecture. We, in London, we had a night in Trafalgar Square. We went and saw Aladdin at the theatre there in London. That was fantastic. We went to Paris and chilled out for 4 days on the way back. Amazing city, love that place, you know. So just, yeah, we enjoy doing what all people do. I think it's just, you know, new experiences, food and touristy stuff. And right now it's been an awesome opportunity because of all the traveling we've been able to do. It's allowed us to do some really cool, fun stuff that we wouldn't have been able to do before. So, yeah, that's kind of me and what I do for hobbies. Outside of that, I play video games sometimes. Kind of gets my mind off stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gets me away from social media.
So you mentioned that you're a foodie, and obviously your wife, Lisa, I think it is, right, is also
Melissa, yeah.
So you have to tell us, do you do the cooking or does she do the cooking?
I would say that she's the head chef and I'm the sous chef.
Okay, perfect.
If that makes sense. In which case, it's generally just, you know, directions and stuff. But it depends on what's going on in the schedules. Like, I'll definitely chip in and help with the cooking, but I wouldn't necessarily think I'm the visionary of the kitchen.
Okay.
I'm the two I see.
Yeah, I'm always curious because in our household, Steve is the head chef and I'm the sous chef. So I'm always curious.
And a very good sous chef you are.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Okay.
I do. I don't want to leave the traveling if we don't have to right now. Obviously, as you said, you did a lot of traveling in the last year. You've seen lots of places. What did any one of them surprise you, like either good or bad, where it wasn't what you expected, or?
Great question. So I only went to London for the first time in March this year, and the first time I was like, oh my goodness, this is just really cool. Massive city, loved the tube and doing all that kind of stuff. We saw a couple of shows when we were there because we were there for a week. And because we were there with QuickBooks Connect, we were in their VIP summit. So they took us to like the Tower of London for a personalized fine dining experience. So it's kind of weird because you're just staying in hotels and you're on the is the charity wagon the right word? But they're looking after you and you're having an awesome time. And then again, when we went to London just gone, we still had a good time, but obviously we weren't there as part of a VIP summit type thing. So it was kind of a little bit more sort of boring is probably the word. So it just it depends on the kind of travel we're doing. If I'm doing it with an event or a conference, it's generally a lot more fun because people are hosting us and taking us out to do different bits and pieces. Even though you're working, but you can do a bit more of that stuff. Yeah. Paris surprised me because that place is huge and it's just architecturally beautiful. Like everything about it's great. I love the cafe culture. I don't necessarily love all the cafes. I think they could learn a thing or two from an Australian barista. I'm very passionate about my coffee. I'm holding an empty bottle of cold brew coffee right now. Because I've drank it out of my glass already. So there was a lot of cool things I liked about Paris. Latvia is kind of cool in a different spectrum altogether because it's Eastern Europe. Not a lot of people get to Eastern Europe or Russia or anything close to that. And these guys like neighbour Russia, like that is the next door neighbouring country. So there's a lot of history there of, what's happened in the last sort of 100 years and, learning that culture and, the way life kind of was or is always pretty interesting. So, so doing all that and then, now I'm doing a national tour of Australia in the next 3 weeks before coming to San Jose and then coming to Toronto. So,
Toronto now, is that confirmed? Excellent. I hadn't heard that. Excellent.
Yeah. Well, I'm still waiting. Actually, I don't know if they've published it on any of the websites, but they've confirmed as a speaker for Toronto.
Excellent.
QuickBooks Connect. So I'm really excited because I'm coming across for both of those. So excited to meet people like yourself in real life instead of the virtual video conference life.
Yep.
So as in your travels, can you tell us, as you speak to accountants and bookkeepers from around the world, do you see any differences from culture to culture or geographic region to geographic?
I definitely do. It's generally what are they all focused on? If you come to Australia, everyone's very focused on automation and workflows and making sure everything flows together. Hence, we do really well in Australia at Practice Ignition. Like it's our home country as well. Like this is where we started, obviously. But in terms of the trends that people are focused on, we do really well because of that. I go to somewhere like the UK and it's a bit more of an immature market, if that makes sense, in that they've been very focused on automation tools for their clients. They're not necessarily looking at themselves as to how they can do that. And then I go to somewhere like North America and I find we're not really talking about practice management that much at all. It's generally what do you use to run your books, which is generally QuickBooks or QuickBooks Online. And we end up talking through how Practice Ignition helps solve that side of it. But not many people are using things like Carbon or anything like that. It's all very manual and desktop in a sense. So they're generally the things I notice. I actually think Canada is a bit more aligned to Australia in a lot of ways. And it's America that brings you guys down when you categorize North America. I love America. You guys are great. You're awesome. You're fantastic. But in terms of the things I've noticed, the progressiveness starts in Australia and it's looking at everything. They've moved on. Like not moved on from receipt bank type stuff. Like, they use it and love it, but it's a no-brainer. It's like, yeah, everyone uses receipt bank. That's just what we do. Similarly to cloud here in Australia, it's not, you know, do we do cloud or desktop? It's like, don't be an idiot. Like, get on the cloud. Like, it's it's what version of cloud you're going to use. You know, is it QuickBooks or Xero? That's the question. Not is it QuickBooks desktop or QuickBooks online? It's like no. It's QuickBooks or Xero. What are you using? So it's that's kind of the biggest shift I've seen, and what I noticed between each country.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
What would you say, again, from your travels, what is the biggest misconception people have about Practice Ignition? Like the most common thing, you know, they don't get. You obviously get it because you live it every day, but, you know, what's the biggest misconception you would say?
A lot of people have heard the name, probably because we're generally really good at social media, but they don't necessarily know what we do. That's generally step one. Step two, they think that we're no good for sole traders or for bookkeepers. They think that we're too big for them, which I would disagree with 20,000 times over. And the biggest reason I would is, and again, this might be more relevant for Australia, I guess, but if you're going to start a brand new business today, would you start with an Excel spreadsheet or would you start on a cloud accounting ledger?
Right.
And the answer is generally we're going to start on a ledger. I'm like, oh, why not? Why don't you just use a spreadsheet? I mean, you're not a real business. You haven't even started yet. You've got no money or customers. Why would you spend money on an accounting ledger? Like, yeah, but it's so much easier. And why would I do it on a spreadsheet? It means I've got to convert it over and do all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, but you're not a real business. You've only just started. Why would you just, you know, it's very easy for me to kind of break down and tell them all this stuff. And then I'm like, okay, well, are you going to start with a templated Word document or do you want to start with a real system because you want to be a real business in some point in time? Because it's a lot harder to get all your existing engagements into a new system, right? It's very hard to switch over. It's a lot easier to start with the right system from the beginning. So yeah, we're great for sole trading bookkeepers. We're perfect for that one man, one woman sort of band. And we do cater for that too. It's not necessarily on the website. So if anyone is interested and wants to chat to me and they are a sole trader, just drop me an email and we can talk it through. We do have a special rate that we give to our sole traders that we don't necessarily have listed there. So yeah. That's the two biggest misconceptions I've generally got. We don't know, we know the name, we know you, don't know your product. I think I'm too small to use you. And generally it's like, is it just proposals? Is that all you do? And it's like, oh, there's a lot of different benefits that you get. Like if I listed the 3 core features, which is what proposals, payments, and revenue forecasting, they're not the 3 things you want. It's the benefits and the outcomes that you get as a result. So I think I might have said before, we've had a lot of firms move to 100% no debtors at all because they use our platform. And that was the benefit they got by having all of that combined and mixed in. They were able to streamline their process because once they did the proposal, they didn't have to then go and send a bank transfer form or anything like that. It just automatically happens because they baked that process into their proposal. It just, yeah, you stop dealing with checks because I don't even know why we still deal with checks, but we still deal with checks. So we don't have to do that anymore. It's all digital. Yeah. Again, people in Australia would laugh. They're like, checks. What's that about? Why? I don't understand. Why do we do checks?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We had another question from Leanna.
So Leanna has a question. Are there any plans on adding workflows, jobs, and projects?
My short-term answer is no, because that's not the space, that's not the core of what we're trying to solve. We don't want to be everything to everyone. We want to be awesome at what we're currently trying to solve. We're more likely going to, we already are, like integrating into your workflow, job, project management type stuff. If you've seen, QuickBooks has just released projects into QuickBooks Labs in the last couple of weeks. We'd be more likely to integrate into something like that so you can then do your profitability reporting. as opposed to saying, manage practice ignition for workflows, jobs and projects. That's my short-term answer because, the future changes and all that kind of stuff. But at the moment, everything we've said internally is that no, we don't want to do that. We would more likely figure out more ways for you to better communicate with clients in different capacities and how you could potentially make more money by using the platform, whether that's through things like pricing or being able to send out bulk communications to clients, let them sign up for a special offer in your emails and then let that flow all back into your proposals and payments just happen automatically and then track all your ROIs and that kind of stuff. That's the kind of crazy cool stuff we talk about.
That sounds very exciting.
Yeah, it does.
Someone else is already doing workflows. You guys create that cool stuff. I like that.
Yeah.
Can you tell
why
us,
do we need another workflow tool?
what do you love about what you do? I mean, you've got so much passion and energy. You can see it, today as we're talking to you, you see it in social media when you do webinars. So what do you love about what you do?
I think for me, it's, I've been able to kind of create a life that we love. Do you know what I mean? And I get to work with awesome people all over the world. I get to meet so many different people all the time. My job doesn't get stale. I'm doing, 20 different things every different week. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But it's, overall, I think the impact that I get to have with people here, there and everywhere is kind of really, really awesome and kind of self-rewarding in a lot of ways. So it doesn't necessarily matter what hoodie or t-shirt I'm wearing. It's still been the same thing. It's how do I just kind of help people succeed, and through that, what does that look like and how do I succeed in my own career? So I've been really fortunate that, for the last 3 or 4 roles I've had, it's just been, just keep climbing kind of this kind of ladder sort of up. So, one day I'll be a big CEO somewhere, I guess. I don't know.
I'm sure you will.
Yes, and we'll be able to say we knew you when.
That's right. That's right.
We like to end off our questions. Steve and I are very big readers, and again, education is a big part of the reason that we do what we do. Can you share with us whether or not there's a good business book that you're reading or have heard of, whether it's an audiobook or an actual physical book or a digital book that you would recommend for our audience?
So I don't know if you know, but I'm currently writing a book. So that'd be my first. No, I'm kidding. I am writing a book, but that's not the one I want to give you. My favorite business book was a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by, I think it's Ben Horowitz. He was one of the founders, one of the investors that invested in Facebook really early on. It was the Andreessen Horowitz guys, the venture capital guys. And he wrote this amazing book. It's like, what are the hard things you have to do in business? And it's like the hard thing about hard things. Like it goes into some really hectic stuff, like whether, they're worth $1 billion one day and then the .com bubble burst and then they're, scrounging and trying to go and meet customers and then they're building products to win customers, like multi-million-dollar type things and, getting through it at the skin of their teeth. And then they sold out to HP for like, I don't know, it was like $2 billion more than what they were originally valued at and all this kind of crazy stuff. But it also dives into really tough situations when, potentially you've got to let staff go and clients go and all those kinds of things. And it's a tough thing, but you've always got to sit there and go, well, what are we trying to achieve? Like we're trying to run a business, but we are humans and we're trying not to help impact people the wrong way as well. But these are the things we've got to do. Like you got to keep pushing forward and staying true to the mission and the vision of what you're trying to achieve. So I love that book for all of those reasons. And if you're a business owner, everyone can get something out of that.
Interesting. I've not heard of it.
Yeah, no, I've not heard of that either.
Well, I
That's
made
great.
a note of it so we can add it onto our list.
Thank you.
Perfect.
You need to read it. It's fantastic. It's really good.
Okay, so we've got a couple minutes left. There have been some questions that we've kind of been answering as we go along. Does anyone have any other questions that they would like to ask Trent?
This is your last opportunity if you don't ask now. Thank you, Dominique.
Yeah.
Dominique put a link for the book. Thank you.
So she's shared it only to us. Can you share it? Can you flip that out so it's everybody can see it?
I think it says to all. Oh yeah, to all panelists. Yeah, sorry.
Oh no,
Yep.
Dominique
it does,
changed it.
it
Perfect.
does say, yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So that's linked to the book. So
Yep.
excellent. So
If
no,
anyone who wants to know what cold brew coffee I like, it's this one. You can
okay.
buy one of these and ship it to me if you want. That's fine. I like them. They're great.
I don't think I've ever seen that here.
No.
It's Bondi. It's Bondi, Sydney. So you probably won't have, but it's organic cold brew.
What is cold brew coffee? Is that like iced coffee?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry. This is an Australian thing. We're a little obsessed with our coffee that we now drink it cold because hot's kind of so yesterday. Like no one drinks hot coffee anymore.
Okay. So it's just like regular brewed coffee, except you drink it cold.
Yeah, kind of. So it's a cold, yeah. So you brew it. So we, one of the guys in my office does it. He'll get this big like plunger type thing, and you grind up your coffee beans, you put it in the plunger, you put all your cold water in it, put it in the fridge, you leave it overnight so that it, filters out in or whatever, and then that's pretty much it. You just drink it. But you get all these Sydney hipsters that do it in, an organic kind of way so that they can charge you an extra $5 for it.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, and Diane says that we can now get it at Starbucks here in Canada, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know about drinking this cold coffee. I think if I lived in Australia and I could look at the ocean and feel the sun on my face, it might be easier to drink cold coffee. But we live in Canada, and as much as I love it here, I still think hot coffee, particularly for the next several months, is the order of the day.
Well, it will be interesting to see, Trent. It'll be interesting to see, Trent, when you're here in Canada in December, whether you're still drinking cold brew coffee.
That's a great point. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. It's best to enjoy it over ice. So I put a photo up on Facebook the other day, and everyone thought I was drinking scotch at like 10 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
Yes.
Which would have been fun, don't get me wrong, but it was just my glass with a nice ice sphere in it, and and the bottle doesn't help. It looks like it's whiskey as well, but yeah. So
yeah,
Okay.
We get really hot weather. It's a really good, like delicate, refreshing kind of drink.
Okay.
absolutely.
Excellent. Well, when we come to Australia, we'll definitely look. We'll definitely look it up and have it there, sitting at the beach.
I'll take you out. We can do it together. That'd be great.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Excellent. It is on our bucket list to come out to Australia. So, okay, so we've got a couple minutes left. Any other questions from anyone?
No,
It doesn't appear that way.
No, I think, well, he's answered every question. In fact, he was answering questions before the question was asked.
I told you I'm from the future.
Yeah, that's true. He is.
It was amazing.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much, Trent. We know it was early for you as well, but we appreciate you joining us. And thank you to everyone who attended our webinar. I hope that you found it helpful.
So much, everyone, and thank you both for having me. This has been a lot of fun. So I'm actually really awake and can't wait to smash out the rest of my day now. So it's good.
Okay.
It's great.
Awesome. We will see you in San Jose.
Yes, look forward to meeting you there. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Take care,
See you
everyone.
Take
later.
care. Bye-bye.